Assalamu alaikum. I was going to do part 2 right away about the graves, but I want to fill in with this little episode that occurred about 12 years ago when I was substituting 5th grade class in the Boston area, and it was primarily a Hispanic language. You know, the children, they're supposed to know English, but they really don't. So I was substituting. I was passing out the sheets as a substitute does, and they fill in the sheets. And it's a pretty simple job to be a substitute teacher. But 5th grade girls sometimes can be a little challenging. You know, they tease each other and they gossip and sometimes they're naughty. So this particular day, they were busy filling in their sheets, which is a break for me because then they don't have time to really annoy each other or cause disruption. But this young girl, I would say 11 years old, she was looking very sad, like she wanted to cry. And she was like almost nodding off to go to sleep. And she looked like a very well cared for young girl. She didn't look like one of those abused children. And I just didn't know what to do. And I was busy with the other students. So I thought I'd wait until the class would be over and then I'd go to her privately and see what was happening. Because, you know, sometimes if it's something like abuse or trauma, you have to fill out forms. I mean, it gets to be a little bit too much what they do because there's no need. You know, if somebody gets a sympathetic ear, but you see they've destroyed everything with all these reports because then the children, they feel under pressure. But I've always been loved by the children. I think it's the clothing. They get a little bit stunned. They can't figure it out when they see the clothing, and then they get curious, and children love to be curious about things. And then when they find that I'm really nice and approachable and normal, they all love me. I never had any problems with them. I did over 80 different schools over a year, substituting all over the Boston area. And it would usually be in the African American areas or in the Hispanic areas. There was only one in the Irish area, which was farther for me to drive, so I only did it a couple of times. It's called South Boston. So in this particular day, I was in, I think, if I recall correctly, I was in Roxbury. And as I said, she was looking downcast and troubled. So I wanted to wait until the class was over, and then I went up to her and I said, Esmeralda was her name. I remember her name. And I said, are you okay, honey? You look like you might not be feeling well. You look very tired. And she said, I just don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I said, what do you mean you don't want to go? You don't want to leave school? Most of the children run out the door. She said, no, I'm tired of going there all the time. I don't want to go. I said, where is it you don't want to go? She said, the graves. My mom is always taking me to the graves of my grandma, and I just don't want to go again. We go too much. And I was taken aback because I know something about Hispanic Latino culture, and I know that they do a lot of grave visits. But I never got details about it because I didn't know anyone personally. So I said, well, how long have you been having to go too much, as you say? And she said, ever since my grandma died. My mom wants to go there like 2 or 3 times a week to visit her grave. And it makes me sad because my mom cries. And then my mom makes me put flowers on the grave and it makes me cry. And she said, I just don't know why we have to keep doing this so much. So immediately I thought about the hadith. And when I was a new Muslim, I questioned this hadith because way back, I'm saying like 35 years back, when I heard that you're not supposed to do visiting of the graves, and I finally came to Egypt and I asked the scholars, the big shuyukh, and they said, well, no, it's not exactly that. It's zawarat al-qabur, because the women go overboard. And I said, yeah, but are you supposed to even go at all? He said, well, actually, we Sunni Muslims, we just make a prayer as we pass the graves. Even if we're out on the road and we're driving, we will say this particular prayer. Antum sabiqun wa nahnu lahiqun. You've gone in front of us. You've beaten us to the hereafter, and we will soon be meeting you there. However, he did make a point of saying zawarat means females who visit graves frequently. like they make it a habit. And I remember his explaining that to me and saying that because women are more emotional, they get affected more so, and they shouldn't be doing this. So now I cannot explain this to the young girl. First of all, I cannot say, well, in Islam, no, I mean, it's not accepted to do something like that. So all I could do was to try to make her feel happy because her mom is sad because the mom's mom died, and it's this girl's grandmother, and it's almost as though her mom is, in a sense, ruining the happy memories that the girl probably had of her grandma. Abuela, I think they call that Abuela. And in the Hispanic families, they're very close to the old grandmas. So I took a deep breath, and I tried to make her feel that if you're next to your mom, and your mom is very sad, you can hug her, and you can tell her how much you love her, and then you can speak about, who knows? I said, your grandma's resting now. She's in a better place. You're going to meet her together when you're in heaven. Of course, how would I know that the mom was in heaven or going to heaven or even would be or should be in heaven? But because this is a young girl, you had to more or less do what you had to do to take the young girl out of her sorrows. But you can't say anything that would directly make it seem like you're proselytizing for the Islamic faith. But when I started to do this lesson today, and now I'm ready to do part 2, all I thought about was Esmeralda and how sad she was that she had to keep going to this grave. It's amazing what thoughts bring from previous memories, and it's always Islam is right, all the time Islam is right. Prophet Muhammad's hadith is always suitable. May we have better education for all children, especially Muslim children in Islamic schools, or at least after-school programs for them, something to make them build themselves in an Islamic persona where they wouldn't be confused. Inshallah. Let's be patient. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.